dark circles under my eyes because it looks quite natural. It's an old theater trick. And I grease my hair back with the dipstick of my sports car, you know, because I have fine hair and you can kind of see what I'd look like bald, and I had a high hairline to get rid of my Peter Frampton curls. And and that's what I had to do that because I knew I didn't look right. And Wyss is such a great storyteller, as everybody on this panel will attest. And he's so wonderfully poetic and articulate when he speaks and succinct that it was real easy for me to shut up. As you know, I like to talk. I just shut up and just sort of tried not to blink, that old staring game we all play in grade school, you know, when you see who blinks first. I kind of did that with Les while I listened. But I know I must have had a smile on my face because he was telling me these great concepts. I mean, he was already, on my audition, he was talking about Bruno Bettelheim and the Brothers Grimm and how it was going to be this dark, twisted fairy tale. And I was just going, yeah, in my mind's eye, I could see what he was going to do. And I've often thought that the real truth to me getting the part is I have a very narrow face, and Wyss just knew if he put makeup all over it, it would look normal. You know, Wyss says that, you know, Robert was very intelligent and he understood my concept. Well, I did, but I'm not sure that that was displayed at my audition. I rather think that Annette Benson, the wonderful casting director, she had just seen me do screen tests for 6 roles in National Lampoon's Class Reunion. I screen tested with Annie Potts, I screen tested with lots and lots of people, and I didn't get in this movie, and I think Annette felt bad and just talked me up to Wyss. So I've never known the real truth of this. You know, maybe someday Wyss will let down his guard, like we all have a bit of guard up, and tell me what happened. I may just have gotten the part because I have a skinny face.
And of course, Nightmare on Elm Street was of that era of films, and I would say probably the leading film of what often gets referred to as rubber reality movies. These are films that, you know, there's a lot of surreal elements to them, a lot of special effects that are organic, a lot of makeup, blood, all that kind of stuff, sort of mind-bending things going on. That's definitely one of the key reasons that the film has endured and why people respond to it so much. But the other side of that is that it's a very demanding sort of project to undertake. You guys shot in 30 days, I believe. And just there's stuff that didn't even make it into the film because they just didn't have time or they were too ambitious to do it. So maybe tell us a little bit about your toughest day on set working in this world. And I'll go down here to Heather first.
Well, tough in terms of physical demand was probably the bathtub, but it wasn't so uncomfortable in that it was just wet and kind of cold, and it was very, for me, I didn't actually have to work as hard as Jim had to work, who was our special effects man, who was in a scuba suit underneath me with Wyss, kind of choreographing all of those, you know, plunges of the glove out of the bathtub, and then he pulls me down into the bathtub, and you know, I would try to escape. So each of those, and you think about how many different shots there are, that day was extremely long. Each of those shots was a separate setup, camera move many times, and so getting in and out of the tub all day, and often the water would get kind of cold, and Wyss would be like, "Can you do one more take?" And I'm like, "Okay." And so that was a very demanding day. But I have to say, the other days when Robert and I were fighting, those days were demanding because he's strong and he's whipping me around the room, and we're choreographing and we're trying to, you know, get it all right. It's very physical, lots of physical action, and throwing people on the bed, and those were very tiring days.
Well, I got all the feathers up my nose because I had all the makeup on, so the feathers would stick to me.
And now they would never let us do a shot like that, like OSHA forbids the shooting in feathers or something like that.
But do you remember the day we did the pickup shots one day, Heather? And we were directed by Sean Cunningham, the creator of Friday the 13th. And we were on like 3rd unit, which for me, 3rd unit, you can always tell you're on 3rd unit because it's last night's crunchy peanut butter, you know, and Doritos. That's what craft service is. It's real pathetic.
Well, and they also set up the set along the side of the soundstage. Literally, they just created an alley.
Yeah, and it's real half-ass. And Heather, they were making Heather run, and I was chasing her, and I was leering out or something like that. It was this weird rack focus shot. But all I remember was there was all this work left over from the night before on the floor. They hadn't swept. And I finally called a halt to it. I don't know whether I was flirting with Heather and trying to be her white knight or not. But I remember Heather you stepped on a nail.
No, I stepped on I think it was a piece of glass because I didn't have to get a tetanus shot.
Yeah, and I remember I said, this is ridiculous. What's it take to sweep here? You've got to running back and forth. But I remember you and I were both really agitated and tired, and I think we probably were on about our 18th hour.
And I asked Bob Shea, the producer, I said, I'm bleeding, you know, quite profusely from my foot, and he's like, do you think this can wait till the end of the night? And I just went, no. And so they had to take me to the Hollywood hospital.
That's right, yeah.
And I had to get a stitch, and then I came back and went to work, and you know, they were really annoyed at how I had inconvenienced them that day.
Well, I think the blood is kind of a good segue. Talk to Amanda about the famous rotating room scene, because they tell this great story about how, you know, they're moving this thing around, and people don't even realize because it's so seamless, but you're actually like being smashed off the walls and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, it was the Johnny Depp scene. I don't know if you're on set for that, but when the blood explodes, you know, what goes up must come down, and it kind of settled, but it was uneven, and the room tipped, and it all came gushing out, and exploded lights, and all that kind of stuff. So you guys
Actually, Jim Doyle, they rotated the house the wrong way. Heather and I witnessed that. They'd already done the other scene, and it worked great with Amanda. But they rotated the house the wrong way, and all the blood went out the window of the bedroom. It was the same room that was Amanda's bedroom was redressed as Johnny Depp's. They just moved furniture around and put up new wallpaper.
The scene was supposed to have the blood coming out of the bed. The room was going to rotate, say, clockwise, and the blood would have dripped down the walls, really dramatically dripping.
Like
down.
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Exactly, but instead the blood went all out the empty side of the wall that had been available to get in and out of the room, and so it just landed on all of us watching and exploded all the lights.
Heather and I ran like little girls out into the Cahuenga Boulevard.
Suddenly you guys are making Carrie.
You ran like electrocuted, right?
No, but that just shows you, like, when something bad goes wrong, all you filmmakers out there, just, you know, see if you can make it work. The fact that Wes made it work, because there was no taking a second take on that, so Wes made it work, and I don't think you would even know that it's probably a better choice, the way that it happened. It's way more surrealistic, very strange, and, you know, I think it's better than if the play had gone down the walls.
Do you see it going
No, I mean, just think that the room has, instead of 6 sides, that room was only 5 sides, because everyone had to load equipment in and get out in one open side of that box. So the blood just went right out the box. And it was really exciting day.
So,
I missed it. I wasn't there.
But for your scene...
A blood tsunami.
Oh, blood tsunami.
That's a great
That
name
sounds
for a
like,
film.
that's like it would be like a good grindhouse movie. Blood tsunami.
But for your scene, what was it like sort of being in a human Yahtzee game? Like,
Oh yeah, right, like a bingo roller. You know what? It was really challenging actor-wise. I mean, not like challenging life-wise, whatever. But at the end of it, I just want to cut to the end. I felt so amazing about myself when I got it done. I felt like I had gone skydiving or something. But you know, it was just tricky. There was a lot of responsibility. I was young. There was a lot of technical things in that room. It was, as everybody out here probably knows, it was a room built within the soundstage, and I think literally then cranked it around.
Cranked it by hand.
And so the room spun around, so everything in that room was nailed down, shellacked, glued. The cameraman and Rod were in airplane seats, like buckled in. So I was always on the floor as the room spun around, and they actually would end up upside down going around, and that's the view you see. But I got vertigo the first time we started to go around, and so I I was panicked because I thought I was falling. I was literally like felt my gravity going, which I thought was up, but whatever. I was so confused and so upset, and so Wes had to stop because once we introduced the actual, like, all the blood and all that stuff in there, like, you kind of had one good take. And so he was like, you know, you got to do this, and he talked, and I was just like, okay. And he's like, you're not going to fall. I never believed him. I was so upset the whole time. So while I'm screaming, I am literally screaming because I think I'm falling. And the whole time, so I was really traumatized. I was very upset. I was dizzy for like 2 days after that scene. But then as soon as it was done, I felt great. I was like, oh my God, that was so amazing. I'm so awesome. I can't believe I did that. And it was so great. So I did like a total turn after it was over, but I was a complete like crybaby through the whole thing. I was so upset, and I just thought I was gonna fall. I thought the bed was gonna fall on my head. I was so upset, and so it was just funny. But then afterwards, I acted like I totally knew what was happening the whole time, and then I was so cool that I'd done it. So yeah, but I got vertigo, like, and it lasted a couple days.
You were our own, very own little Fred Astaire. Like the Stanley Donen Fred Astaire movie where Fred dances up and around. It's the exact same concept as that film, and you've all seen those clips of Fred Astaire dancing around. But imagine Amanda having to get to the position she needed to be for the shot the first time and having to do what Fred Astaire did, just at that moment where gravity helps you to do it. But just before that moment, you feel like you're going to upchuck.